Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Now, before we jump into the show, I just want to share with you a great discount from Voice 123. In the show notes, I'll have a link for a 15% discount on a new Voice 123 membership at the $395 level and up. I've had tremendous success on the Voice 123 casting platform. I have an affiliate partnership with them to provide this amazing discount to my listeners. And this discount can be found in the show notes, so make sure you check it out. So on today's episode, my guest is Samantha Boyer. Samantha is an artist and a storyteller. She is the creator of the magical Haven Hollow, which I'll have her tell you about. She provides followers with an enchanting escape from this world, which sadly is so often not very enchanting at all. Samantha creates a story around each piece of art that she creates, and she experiences a bit of magic in each brushstroke. She also lends her voice to many of the videos she creates and is an amazing storyteller. So I thought it would be nice to take a slight detour off the VO path to talk with another creator and learn a little bit about how she came to her art and more about her creative process. So Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. That was a very sweet intro. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with, we talked a little bit before I hit record that this is primarily a voiceover podcast, but you know, I see other creators that I come across on social media and just through my travels throughout the creative world, and I think there's so much that we can learn from one another, whether we're actors, whether we're writers, whether we're artists, creators of any kind. So I was really drawn to the work that you're doing and drawn to the what you're posting on social media, and TikTok in particular is where I think we met. And I just really enjoyed watching the content that you were providing. So I thought it really would be nice to take just a little bit of a detour off of the VO world path and just talk about your creative journey, because we're all creatives and we can all learn from one another. So maybe we could start by just having you share your journey. How did you come upon your art?
I've always been a little creative gal. I think it started honestly growing up. I did a lot of singing, and my parents got me into piano lessons and voice lessons.
Hmm.
And I had horrible, horrible stage fright. And my mom would always tell me, just forget the notes. You've practiced enough. You know the notes. Just tell the story. And even if you mess up here or there, the story is what touches hearts. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. That's what counts. So just tell the story. And so that was my first coping mechanism, I guess, for life in general. And nerves was just focus on telling the story. It's just a story. We're all just here for the journey. And as cheesy as it sounds, that got me through high school, and music and singing was my life there. And because of the nerves, I kind of dropped it after I graduated high school, and I got into the medical billing and office management world. And that
Mm.
was a little bit soul sucking
The
for me.
non-creative world, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was really good at it. There's a very analytical side of my brain, but I needed more creativity. And so I got into painting. And I mean, I had painted growing up, but I figured that was something I had sold a painting here and there over the years. And so I thought, if I have to jump into something, let's just give this a try. And I learned early on while posting my artwork that until you have a name for yourself in a creative industry, there are limited options. How do I phrase that? You can paint what your heart wants to paint, but that doesn't mean people are going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned early on that I would either have to make some compromises in my creative journey, or I would need to shift to the focus a little bit. That premise came back to me that just focus on the story. And so I thought, you know what, if I just told stories about the artwork and the art was just an illustration, it was just kind of like accompanying the story, then I can paint whatever my heart wants. As long as I have a story to tie it in, I can create whatever I want. And so that became my main focus, was I guess just this theme my whole life of tell the story, and that's what got me to today. I get to paint and write stories, and I've dabbled into the voiceover side of telling those stories and realized that it's an art form all its own. Your content on social media introduced me to that. And I even get to do a little bit of singing. I don't advertise that very much, but a lot of the background music in my videos is me singing, and so I get to incorporate all of it.
That's wonderful. I remember I took singing lessons when I was in college, and I remember my singing teacher telling me that she's like, just learn the notes. She goes, don't worry about adding anything to it. And it kind of jogged when you mentioned about your mom saying, you know the notes, you know how to do it. She said, when Barbara Streisand, she used her as an example. She said, look, when Barbara Streisand learns a song, she learns all the notes and then she adds Barbara to it, the Barbara that you'd see performing. But she doesn't do that right in the beginning. She learns the song first. And I thought that was a pretty good lesson, was to learn the notes first, and then you can sing it, and then you can embellish or do whatever you want to add to it. But it's really important to kind of learn those notes first. So good lesson that your mom taught you as well. But I'm curious about the art. So you sang, and when did the art start for you in earnest? Because the art that you create is just beautiful. And did you take classes? Did you take lessons? Was it something that came naturally, or is it a combination of all the above?
Well, thank you. That was something I remember being 8, 9, 10, and watching the local PBS shows and following along with those. I loved Bob Ross and Donna Dewberry. Donna Dewberry is still going strong with her tutorials, but I learned a lot of the basics from watching those. And then outside of that, just the culture of appreciating art was very apparent in my family. My grandma did a lot of artwork, and my uncle does art professionally, and some of my other family members. And so I was just surrounded by it a lot, and the concept of we need art, and that was a common theme growing up. And so it was just something that I did as a hobby, and focused on my music until I made that shift.
So you definitely had some natural talent there, some genetic talent in the family
Yes.
line of
Yes.
artwork. Now, when I know when I follow you on TikTok and I saw some of your videos, the and you mentioned that you were in billing and kind of transition over. What was that process like? Because I know for me, I had transitioned over from owning my own small brick and mortar business. I owned a pharmacy, did VO part-time in the margins, and then eventually evolved, built up my client base to the point where I was able to go full-time. What was that transition like for you? What was that process like when you were in the 9 to 5 type job, knowing that you had this creative soul inside of you? How long did that process take, and what was it like?
Um, it was difficult, Mike.
I imagine.
It was difficult, and I mean, like the first day after I had quit my 9 to 5 was it felt freeing, but also a little bit. I didn't expect the confusion that came with entrepreneurship and the overthinking, and I would my job was to channel this creative side of my brain. But then when you mix creativity and business,
Mhm.
you open up a lot of freedom to overthink and to get into that freeze mode where everything feels scary and you don't know the next step. And I had done a little bit of entrepreneurship. I had an Etsy shop right after I graduated high school. I kind of tried that for a second. And so I understood that it's easier said than done to launch your own brand or business. Um, I think personal branding was a huge journey of learning how to brand myself and package my content. And the schedule, how do I phrase that? I was so used to, I mean, even in music, I had a choir director or a vocal coach who told me, this is the song we're going to sing. And these are the assignments you're going to do in school. And I was that straight A overachiever. And so at the 9 to 5 was very simple for me because you give me my job, I'm going to do it plus 10% and then feel good at the end of the day. And when you work for yourself, especially in a creative field, I learned I cannot measure my work anymore by the hours that I put in. I have to measure the amount of creative energy that I'm using rather than the hours that I work, because a 9 to 5 doing math and billing, I could handle that. A 9 to 5 where my creative brain is on the entire time is absolutely draining and my work doesn't look good toward the end. So I really have to I've learned to pace myself. I'm still learning to pace myself and how to schedule it all in and to not overthink and balance all of it. The analytics and the schedule and the creativity is a balancing act.
I love that. When I first started, again, I was so structured in my life. What I knew where I had to be every day. When the pharmacy was open, I had to be there. And doing it in the margins, I kind of knew when I had my time to record and audition, and I did that before and after work, still trying to balance time with family, and we had children and small children at the time. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and trying to manage all that stuff was difficult, but at least it was structured. But when I transitioned over, exactly what you said, it was so freeing to know that now I had total control of my day. I would decide when I got up, what I did, when I stopped, how much I did. Everything was up to me. And it took a little while to sort of get a handle on that, just like you said, because now all of a sudden you're making your decisions. I remember I have a journal next to me, and I have a date planning calendar. I use them both, but I would use the journal. I still do to this day to create a to-do list. But I knew that I had to break it up so that I wasn't, like you said, spending so much time, potentially too much time in one area and not in another. So I don't use it now, but I remember I had a code. One was um, whatever I was on, I would keep track of my entire day. I would write down what I was doing throughout the day. And then I would put either a circle, a dash, or an X next to it. And one meant I was actually recording and or actually doing work for clients. One symbol was I was marketing myself to potentially get more work. And then the other symbol was personal, what I was doing, spending time with family or doing something that I enjoyed personally. And I wanted to make sure that I coded that in the beginning so that I could look back after a week or a month and say, okay, am I spending too much time in this area and not enough here? And I could get a quick overview of how I was spending my time, because that was the biggest challenge for me. It wasn't, and I think you said this and would probably agree. I was spending so much time on either creating or marketing that I would be down in the studio for like 12 hours. And I was like, well, wait a minute. One of the reasons I did this was because I wanted to have some freedom to enjoy my life. And I don't have to feel guilty if I want to take a half an hour and go for a walk with my wife or have dinner with my children and enjoy something about the day. It felt almost, I felt guilty about enjoying my day to a certain extent. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yes,
It was
yes.
tough. What
Hmm.
was that like for you, trying to manage all that? Did you have any kind of a system, or did it just kind of filter its way to you kind of finding what worked for you?
I think I'm still finding a system. I think I've done it, I've done this full time. I mean, my stories and current YouTube videos I've done maybe for a year, year and a half, but I quit my 9 to 5 about 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think I'm still trying to find the system and the like we've talked about, you have, your personal life and then your business marketing, you have to have that analytical side that pushes your career forward. And then you have the creative side. And I'm trying to learn the art of batching different types of
Mm.
content so that I can it's such a jarring shift to be in a creative mode for a couple hours and then switch into a business mode for another hour, and it's just so mentally draining. So I'm still trying to learn that process of how can I batch 5 or 6 paintings at once and then work on the video content for them and still have a personal life where I can maybe shut my brain off to spend time with my family. Um, yeah, I don't know that I have any thoughts or tips past that. I'm floating down the river right now, just trying to figure it out.
Well, you're doing a great job, and one
Thank
of the
you.
things I love about the content, and I know how hard this is to do, is to it's one thing to create art, right? So do the work that you do. You get up in the morning and you create something. It's another thing to then to make a business out of the art that you're creating. And I know one of the ways you're doing that is you do create stories around the pieces that you do, and you created this magical place called Haven Hollow. So how did that come about? Where did that spring from? And I know that's a big part of your marketing as well, and the videos that you create. So how did that start? Tell us a little bit about that, and then what gave you the idea of incorporating that into your social media marketing?
Mhm. It was a bit of a transition. When I first started, I was actually creating content to get into the um, relationship coaching world, a little bit of life coaching. So there was a lot of relationship thoughts and mental health in that sort of content. And I found a crossover with that and art therapy. So I started making some art therapy content and reached an audience that way. And in the process, right, I was experimenting with different facets of personal branding. So at this point, I was taking on my educator role.
Mhm.
And then I was shifting into the entertainment side of things when I introduced my artwork. And like I kind of mentioned previously, in order to sell a piece of art or a creative work, you have to touch somebody's heart in a certain way. They have to feel an emotion. Otherwise, it's just a piece of artwork that they can hang on the wall. It's just an image, and you can buy that at any store for cheaper than fine art. So you have to channel those emotions somehow. And so there was a lot of my art in that crossover art therapy transition. I was creating artwork to process emotions or to handle life events. And so I decided to start writing about it. And that's when I decided, if I'm going to push this direction, I should make it, and it needs to be an entire brand in order for it to feel cohesive. So I decided to create Haven Hollow, where we could go and explore life in its lights and darks in a safe environment. And it made it I made it made it possible for me to talk about the darkest of topics that I wanted to introduce in such a light-hearted and safe way that didn't feel heavy when I was addressing them. So I have a video on grief
Mhm.
and some on depression and others just on like following your intuition and things that are a little more lighthearted. But I'm now able to it's it's freed up my creative side. I can create whatever painting I want. I can talk about whatever topic I want. As long as I can tie it back to Haven Hollow and these stories, it gave me so much creative freedom. And when I realized that, I just ran with it and created this little world that's still unfolding.
It's absolutely wonderful. And I saw the video where you actually were creating the original pages, and then you were like dipping them in gold paint and around the edges, which you said was kind of you probably would have done it differently, from the video, it looks beautiful. I know behind the scenes actually doing it was so much more difficult, but the it's kind of the I was trying to think what is it that I could point to that's specifically very tangible about it. And I think it's that in this world that we live in where everything is so fast paced and is created quickly and with artificial intelligence doing all these things for us, that what Haven Hollow seems to be able to do is it creates a space for people to and I think you even say this, to just slow down, to stop, take a breath, enjoy something magical, mystical, whimsical. And I think that's probably what draws people to it. And then the originality of it, that it's not artificially created, it's created by you and put together by you, and you put it into the binder, and then you can open the book. And I know that that is must be so difficult to not only create that, but also to present that to people in such a way that it's engaging and draws them in. Is that process of creating and then incorporating that into video content that is potentially going to get people to support you, whether it's on Patreon or by purchasing products from you, there's that intermingling of that creativity and that business side. Did you find that difficult, challenging? Do you enjoy doing it? Is it an obstacle for you? How does that all meld together for you?
That's a big question.
I know.
I love creating. I love writing the stories and the voiceover work for the stories and editing. I do not like being on camera.
Hmm.
So the filming days really drain me. So I've had to kind of balance that out. But somewhere I learned early on that people would rather consume content that shows the journey of creating something rather than if you just show them the final product without that story, I guess going back to that of showing someone how it got to where it is. There's not as much of an attachment to that piece. So I guess that's been a little bit of a challenge in that way where one of my financial or business goals is to sell the artwork, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the values that I try to put in my messaging is that the process of creation is the important part. AI doesn't matter. It doesn't become as threatening when you create art because you enjoy the process of creating. AI can never take that away from you. And so I try to push that message, which pushes people to create their own art, which is ultimately I would rather inspire someone to fall in love with the process of creating their own art form in whatever way they do that rather than selling my artwork. So I've tried to lean into that creation process and allowing myself to just relax and enjoy the filming days and fall in love with that process because that's the message that I want to come through. I'm sure you've seen that in your voiceover work where I mean, if you are reading a romance book, you can't be super stressed and uptight unless that's the character that you're portraying. I've had to learn to embrace that concept of slowing down. If that's the message I'm pushing, I have to incorporate that into my own life. And so it's that creation process and it's it's more work to show that process. Like you were saying, how do you incorporate all of it? It's more work to show that process than to just show the final result. But I found a lot more connection with the community that I've found when I do show that process rather than just saying, hey, I opened my shop and I've got some new paintings that you've never seen before in your entire life. And
Right.
I hope you love them somehow.
Yeah, it's a whole nother layer of interaction with the people that you're seeking to support the work that you're doing. And
Mhm.
that kind of leads me to my next question is that you are very active on TikTok, very active on social media. You have a Patreon account. I'm sure you're on other social media platforms. That journey into the world of being, I would probably make the case that you are technically a content creator, right? You're an artist, but you are a content creator. I would put you in that category. Um,
Mhm.
being a content creator in and of itself is a full-time job. And then you have to choose how you're going to create your content. And you've come up with a really wonderful, I think, a wonderful formula for that. Understanding the different platforms, understanding what works on the different platforms, um, making sure that you're matching the content with those platforms. How has that been for you? Again, that kind of bridges the gap of creativity and pushes us into a different part of our brain when we're dealing with those things. I
Hmm.
found that for me in my own experience in the creative type of things that I put out on social media, which are not nearly as in depth or detailed as what you create, is that in and of itself is a fun process for me to record a video and to edit it and put some music underneath it and do those things, which are very, very minor. But what you're doing next level stuff. And so that I know because of the amount of effort it takes me to do something that's relatively simple, that creating content that's next level is more complicated, more time consuming, more stressful. How does that fit into your world? Do you embrace that? Does that drain you? I know you don't like video days, but the overall creation of content versus I'm going to sit down and paint a painting today. What's that
Yeah.
like for you?
Yeah.
Fascinated by that.
At the start, I was annoyed by the editing process and the video side of things because I just wanted to paint. And I would dare say, like you said, I think I'm first and foremost a content creator. I would rather most of the time I would rather sit down and do an editing day than a painting day at this point. I love the editing process. I started out on TikTok, and from TikTok editing, I learned I learned how to edit really quickly. And then I posted a little on Instagram. They had a different editing style. Like you said, a video will perform differently depending on the platform and how you edit it. And so that's why I ended up on YouTube, is because there were different facets of my personality and stories I wanted to tell that can only be told in long form content. It allowed me to tell a full story instead of just rushing really fast and putting my heart into a 15-second clip that
Hmm.
no one might ever see. And YouTube, it lives forever. So people can go back and, I mean, you can go back and watch short form, but so where I am now, I spend most of my time on YouTube videos, and sometimes I'll repurpose that footage for the other platforms, but I'm not posting nearly as often as I used to at the start. But I would not discount, I think anyone looking to get into this type of work, absolutely try the different platforms, see what types of video you like to create and what platform it works best on and why. Since I started on YouTube and I learned how to edit quickly, and I learned engagement editing, retention editing, I was able to apply that to my YouTube videos. Since YouTube is a longer form video, you'll see longer cuts. So, like a 4-second clip. And TikTok taught me how to cut every 1 to 2 seconds, but still make the video feel soft and slow and cozy, even though the retention editing is quick. I have a clip change every 1 to 2 seconds, but I guess what I'm saying is try all the different platforms because you're going to learn useful tools depending on the audience on that platform, and it'll help you reach a wider audience when you have all of those little tools in your belt, regardless of your main platform that you choose to post to or focus on. You'll kind of end up with one that's a favorite, but they all have different tools that I think are important.
I end up doing mostly TikTok, and then I'll put the TikTok videos on Facebook and Instagram. So kind of
Yep.
cheating that way, but TikTok lets you do it. But it's okay. But I'm not creating different content. But I do know with YouTube you can create much longer content, and then you can split that up and put that onto your other platforms, which is
Yeah.
nice. Where are you editing, or do you have a separate editing platform that you use, or do you just use the different platforms that they make available to you?
Yeah. No, my voiceovers I record in Audacity,
Yep.
and my videos I edit in DaVinci Resolve.
Hmm. Very nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
So the artwork that you create, people that aren't aware of who you are and haven't seen your work, how would you how would you describe the artwork that you create?
You'd think that I would have a really quick answer to that, but I
I
don't.
stumped you.
Um, it's very I would say that it is light-hearted themes with a very dark color palette. So kind of dark and moody colors, but fairy portals and butterflies, and I just finished some pumpkins.
I saw the
Um,
pumpkins. And
yes.
beautiful your beautiful use of, not to interrupt your description, but
Hmm.
beautiful use of light.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously you're using paint, but to bring it, they glow.
Thank you. Yeah, that light has always been um, the the common thread in everything, right? So the themes in my videos, I try and focus on the lights and darks of life, and then I try and take wherever we're at on that journey and that topic and incorporate that into my color palette. And we have this darkness that we're dealing with, or these dark things that you have to go through, and here's how that darkness allows us to see light on an even brighter level, because you can only see some lights, you can only see at in the darkness.
Mm,
And so I don't have to use a lot of bright whites in my work because the palettes are so dark. I get to use softer colors that still feel warm and cozy even though it's such a dark painting.
that's beautiful. So
Thank
now,
you.
if people were looking to get, I know originally you were doing paintings, and I think, is your shop still open for people to purchase, or did you? I can't remember. Did I see something on the website where you had it closed when you opened it temporarily?
Mhm.
So if people are going to be like, oh, well, I want to go check out Samantha's art, is it available to purchase?
Yeah, I have. So there are pictures of the artwork on my website, but that's part of that. How do you handle the creative and business side of things?
Hmm.
I open my shop for a couple days once a quarter. So then all of the orders come in at once. I can spend a few days shipping them all at once and then get back to creating. So it's closed right now. It opens in a week or so, I think.
And do you sell prints? What
Uh huh.
about your original work?
Yeah, I sell originals and prints. Hmm.
So people have to kind of get on there and order them quick if they want some.
Yes. Yeah, I have
It's
an
not a bad
email
problem to
list.
have.
No, not for me anyway.
Yes, exactly.
I have an email list that I keep updated so that I'll send out reminders every time I open it.
And you kind of touched on this earlier, but I just want to put a fine point on it. You are a content creator, but you are at heart an artist, and you do a lot of other things to maintain and grow your business. Has the business side of it lessened your desire to create art, increased your desire, hampered your desire in any way? Has it affected your ability, desire to create art, which is at the heart what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Some days, honestly, it has um, put a little bit of a damper on that desire to paint because the focus is it's so important that I get a video out,
Right.
right? It doesn't matter what I paint if I don't connect with people. And so in that way, I guess it's changed it. I have, instead of the purpose just being for myself to create whatever I feel like, the purpose in creating has become to touch someone else's heart or brighten someone else's day or give them a peaceful escape to fall into when they click play on a video. And so in that sense, it's become more a labor of love rather than a hobby.
Hmm.
And that does change the way I create, but I think I would prefer it this way. I was telling my husband the other day, if we got millions and millions of dollars tomorrow and we got to retire for the rest of our lives, what would we do and spend our time doing? And I would keep creating my videos. I'm doing exactly, I think, what I want to do. It gives me purpose. And so, yeah, it's
That's
changed
beautiful.
it.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, and it evolved, right, from where you were 3 years
Mhm.
ago to where you are now. It's a path, and I remember when I first started on my journey, when I sold the pharmacy and went into VO full time, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a consultant who had worked in state government, and he had left his job years earlier and started a consulting business. He had met with somebody for advice, as I was with him, and the gentleman who he went to lunch with, he was kind of hoping that this gentleman was going to give him a bunch of contacts that he could reach out and build his network. And the gentleman said, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm just going to give you one piece of advice. And I've said this before on the podcast, but I'll repeat it. He said, a lot of people when they're on this body of water and they have this boat and they think they need to get across the lake to this spot, and they're going to get in the boat and they start towards that spot, and then the wind picks up or the current picks up and they start to get moved off course, and they work really hard to pull the sail or play with the rudder and kind of row whatever they need to do to try to get over to that place that they think they want to be. And he said, my one piece of advice for you is just get in the boat. That's it. And see where it takes you. Don't worry so much about the destination in the beginning. Get in the boat. And it sounds like you did that. You got in the boat and you began, and you didn't allow yourself, or maybe you did. Maybe there was I'm sure there was some tugging on the sails here and there, but it sounds like you kind of let yourself take that journey, which it's cliche, but it's so true. The journey is what it's all about. It's not necessarily about getting to where you need to get to. So that, I think, is a really wonderful part of your story. And then the fact that if you could do anything in the world, this is what you'd be doing. I've said this to people so many times that once I found voiceover, once I finally found something that filled me up creatively, it was like nothing else I'd ever experienced before in my life through multiple careers. And that I would want to stop people on the street and be like, have you found out what you really love to do? And if you haven't, keep looking, because it's not, I understand that there are realities to life, that we all have bills to pay, we have mouths to feed, and there are pressures of life that not everybody can just go off and do what they want to do. But it doesn't mean that we can't explore the creative side of us that I think all of us have inside. And I think there's a lot of people, me included for many years, who didn't allow ourselves to do that because we were defined by, I think there's 3 ways people typically define themselves. There's the person that you think you are, there's the person that other people think you are, and then there's the person that you think other people think you are. And we spend a lot of time in number 3, and we just should be spending a lot more time in number 1. And I'm just thankful that I found that number 1, and I feel like you probably did too.
Totally agree. Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So before I ask you that, this is maybe the most difficult question of the entire episode, but if you were sitting down with someone who was a fellow creative or an aspiring creative, someone who is that person I just talked about, who has this creative side of them bubbling up, not quite sure how to do it, if there was one single piece of advice that you could give them, what do you think that would be?
I think, assuming that they are a creative wanting to be an entrepreneur, right? Not just a hobby creative. And in that case, just follow your heart, do whatever you want. It's
Sure.
just a hobby.
Yep.
A business, though, I would say it's been important for me to explore my personality, what aspects of that personality show up in my creative work, and what I'm comfortable showing in my professional work, and what I want to reserve for my personal self. Because when you're creative, you put your whole heart into something, and it's important to know where that boundary is so you don't get burned out. And then once you do that, I come in full circle, I guess. You can fully tell your story once you're aware of that side of your personality and the different. I used to think that your personality is this complete image, right? And being authentic in your business means showing up as that complete image. But instead, I found more that, for me anyway, it's more like a puzzle piece. And sometimes I show up as this one puzzle piece, and that's still being authentic. Even though the entire picture isn't there in that video, I can still show up as that one puzzle piece and feel confident that I'm being authentic and connecting with someone and telling my story, because I know myself well enough to know how I can best show up.
That's a wonderful piece of advice. I love that. I love
Thanks.
that. So where can people find you, Samantha?
Yeah. SamanthaBoyer.com is my website, and that has all the links. But Samantha Boyer on YouTube, And then social media handles are Samantha Boyer.
Well, check out her website, everybody, because the content is amazing.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, Samantha, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey with my listeners, and I wish you continued success on your journey.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOPodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast.